Hey everybody, it's your girl Christelda. Rachael Gunn, Ray Gunn from the Olympics. Yeah, I'm going to talk about it too. Everybody's talking about it, and I have to because this is the essence of everything that it is that I teach and have been talking about for a very long time in terms of social justice issues, but also in the esoteric realms of initiation. And so I want to reframe looking at this phenomenon through something I called intersectional initiation. Now, there are lots of social justice frameworks being applied to this situation, right? In terms of her being a white woman and privileged and a PhD, and then taking something that is so rooted in people of color culture, specifically lower income or just downright inner city poor black and brown people that really are the root in terms of a modern world, because this kind of dancing began in other places too, other than the United States a long time ago in tribal societies. But we're talking about the framework of a modern world, our Western modern world. And if we're doing that, we have to acknowledge that this came from the inner cities, from black and brown people. So now that I said that, we can talk about that framework all day long, and you can Google it and find people's opinions about it all day long. What I want to talk about in terms of this situation is looking at the root versus the ivory tower way of being, BEING. When you have come up from the place or places that these people of color have come up from, poverty, racism, sexism, all kinds of the hinterlands of culture in different spaces, then you are a person who is forced to figure out what you're made of to survive. Your intuition remains sharp because it has to survive, right? So you're still in this wild, even though you're in the West and you're in modern society, you have one foot in civilization and one foot kind of in the urban, in the jungle, right? Because you're in the edge of culture, you're in the edge of economy, and you don't have access to power and privilege the way that others do as they move closer to the center of those spaces. And so you are forced to still rely on this animalistic instinct, intuition, and most of all, a sharpened discernment, because we can all get intuitive hits about things, but sometimes our intuition is not enough. How much life experience do we have through suffering and struggle? And then how much have we actually consciously become conscious of that, so we can observe it and use it as material to like alchemize, to create wisdom, right, from that experience, and not more toxicity. Because I'm not saying people who have been through a lot aren't toxic, or that they all have wisdom, because they don't. It takes practice. But if you have struggled and been through a lot, you have access to more raw, pure materials than people who have not. So that's the good news of struggle. You can turn it into real gold, and it's authentic. So now we're talking about Reagan, right? This woman, this very privileged white PhD, 35-year-old woman who wound up at the fucking Olympics, appropriating and taking an art that was hard earned and brought forward into culture by people who are on the edge, by people who have directly experienced through their lived experience, right? Not up here, not studied it, but they lived it in their bodies. These people, you can see that it's from the earth. You can see that it's authentic because they're on the edge of culture. When we start to move up the ladder, of hierarchy into the air and into the ivory towers of the intellect, status, money, the financial space, and that we are able to access power and able to just not struggle financially, wonder how we're gonna eat. when our next meal is going to come and how we're going to pay rent. When you are able to just cover the basics, you can cultivate that freedom. You're living the American dream. The whole point of this country was to follow your bliss, basically, right? To like follow your destiny. But you can't really do that if you're just trying to figure out how to survive in a basic way. So the fact that this woman does not have this in her body, and you can tell she doesn't have this wisdom in her body by looking at what she did and her interpretation of something that comes from the edge of culture, that comes from the root, that comes from struggle. The body expresses that because there's no surrender there. There is still a rigidity, right? In that body, the way that it expresses itself. So I always say that there is something in the mind of what people are calling the colonizer that is envious of the struggle. And there's an interesting, ironic oppression envy. And that those who are deeply privileged have a yearning to understand that struggle. And there is something that they were robbed of. And the struggle actually can bring us closer to our souls, right? If we learn how to observe the struggle in a way that is profound. And so there is an envy there. So this co-opting, this colonization, this appropriation is all rooted in some sort of psychic and unseen desperation to be the chosen ones, right? To be closer to God, to feel something real, to know the root of something instead of always just flying and floating in the air in the ivory tower of privilege. And I wanted to talk about that because this is a spiritual issue as much as it is a social justice issue. In fact, I'm arguing that it is a spiritual issue first. Everything is. And then it is made manifest, whether it's the sickness or the medicine, one way or the other. And so I wanted to talk about this in a different framework, that what she has done, and this whole example of Rachael Gunn, Ray Gunn, is a perfect example of being uprooted and how you don't have it in the body. You can't express rootedness in the body because you don't have those initiations on the edge. And this is what is so awful about Western society today, is that the people who are the least initiated are the ones making the rules. So they're making the rules from the air, from the mind, and not the earth and not the root. And they don't have an identity that is rooted in the earth. It is rooted in the arrogance of the air and the mind, and not directly experienced, and therefore really hard for them to be humbled. Okay, be humbled by it. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up about her. And it's also something called stolen valor, in my opinion. If you look it up, you'll see in the military what stolen valor is people who are wearing medals that indicate that they've been to war, but they have not. That's a great metaphor for this too, isn't it? Anyway, thanks a lot for listening. And please comment if you have any questions. I'm also on Instagram more than I am on TikTok. And I'm going to put this on Instagram too. And be talking about this more on my YouTube channel as well. So anyway, I'd love to talk about this in terms of reframing this using more profound, deeper lens of symbolism, initiation, and looking at the deeper psychological and philosophical underpinnings of colonization, of the desire to co-opt and appropriate something that doesn't belong to your body, to your experience. All right, thanks guys. Talk to you later.